Alright, we are on our last page of the reviews. Let's take a look at our even numbered problems. So problem number 24, let's take a look at that one. It says use reference triangles. We have to draw and label the triangles. So the first thing we need to do is just draw the angle negative 135. So let's take a look where that's going to be. So if I were to start right here along the x-axis, this is 0, right? And I rotate in a negative direction, so I head downward. Now that far would be 90. Alright, so I need to go an additional 45 degrees in order to make it to 135. So another 45 is going to be halfway, right? Do we get that? So in order to draw my angle, it is going to be right straight through the middle of these two axes. And that angle right there, whoops, let me see if I can get this, is going to be the angle negative 135 degrees. Okay? Now, in order to find the cosine, we need to draw a reference angle. How do we do that? We pick a point on the line, which I'm just going to make a point, and we need to draw a line segment perpendicular from that point to the x-axis. Alright, so I need to connect that dot with the x-axis along here. So I just come straight up so that I have formed a right triangle. Now when we do this, this will automatically make one of our special right triangles. Now remember, what did we say the measure from here to here was? Well, that was 45 degrees, right? Because when we measured our 135 degree angle, we went 90, then another 45. So would you agree with me that I could put down here that this angle measure is 45? And if that's 45, this is 45. So this is a 45, 45, 90 triangle. Okay? So now, because I know that, I'm going to label my three sides. Now in 45, 45, 90, we're going to label the two legs 1 and the hypotenuse square root 2. This is just like page 2 when we had those reference triangles, but I'm making 1 as my n. So these three sides used to be n, and n square root 2. Well, we're just plugging in 1 for n, and my sides become 1, 1, and square root 2. However, on an xy axis, we have to pay attention to positive and negatives. So this 1 up at the top right here, okay, that one, because I have gone to the left from 0, 0, remember here's 0, 0, and I've gone to the left, heading this direction, that means that that value is going to be a negative 1. To the left means negative, and same with this other leg on my triangle. Okay, so let me show you what I'm talking about. This number right here, how am I getting from the origin to this point? That's the question. Well, I go left 1, that's my negative 1, and I go down 1, so this one should be negative. Do you see that? So these values will be negative. The hypotenuse right here will always stay positive. Why? Because it is the distance if I go from my origin to the point I drew on my line. The distance of that will always be positive. Alright, so I have my three values. My two legs are negative 1, and my hypotenuse is square root 2. So now let's take a look at labeling the three sides. Let me grab a new color here. I'm running out of colors, you guys. Alright, I need to label theta. Theta is always the angle at the origin. Okay, so that means this 45 degrees is my theta. It's the one that's always right here at the origin. If that is theta, then that makes this the opposite, this the adjacent, and this the hypotenuse. So if I want to solve my original problem, what did they want me to find? They wanted me to find the cosine. Oh, here we go. The cosine of negative 135 degrees. Well, cosine is what? The adjacent over the hypotenuse. Well, we just labeled those. The adjacent is negative 1. The hypotenuse is square root 2. And there's your answer. If you can label these triangles correctly, then it's just a matter of plugging in those numbers. Not too difficult. Alright, let's take a look at problem number 26. Cosine of negative 240. So once again, I got to draw that angle measure. Hopefully you're getting good at doing this by now. So I go negative direction, that means downward, so I'm going to go negative 90, negative 180. Now if I keep going, I'm going to hit 270. So 240 is going to be somewhere between these two lines. Where is it exactly? Well, it is going to be right up here. And what is the measure from here to here? Well, if this is 180, then how much further did I have to go to get to 240? That's going to be important, okay? That's going to be important because I'm going to have to draw a point on my ray, drop it perpendicular to, whoops, I didn't mean to move my dot, you guys. Here we go, draw it perpendicular to the x-axis. And when I do that, I need to know the measure of the angle down in here because that's going to be my theta. So remember how we just talked about that what was the measure from here to here? Remember, if this was 180 and my angle is at, or sorry, negative 180 is at negative 240, how much is that angle measure from here to here? Well, it's 60, right? The difference there, let me get rid of, whoops, all that. The measure is 60. How is that helpful? Well, I need to be able to label this angle measure down in here, and it is 60 degrees. That's my theta, okay? Now that means this up here is 30, so this is my 30, 60, 90. In order to label these three sides, short leg, there's my right angle, short leg is 1, hypotenuse is 2, and long leg is square root 3. But remember when we talked about how do I get to this point from the origin? Okay, well if I start at the origin, I go left 1, which means what? That I'm going to need to make that 1 a negative. And then where do I go? Then I go up exactly square root 3, and up is positive, so I leave him positive. The hypotenuse, the 2, is always a positive number. Okay, I have my three sides. Now I just need to label them correctly. What are going to be, if this is theta, the one always right here at the origin is theta. That makes this the opposite. This one's the hypotenuse across from the right angle. This one's the adjacent. So if I want to solve my problem here and I want to find the cosine of negative 240 degrees, well, cosine is adjacent over hypotenuse. And so my adjacent is negative 1. My hypotenuse is 2, and my answer is just negative 1/2. All right, how are we doing? You getting this? Let's try one more. Problem number 28. All right, before we ever start, we draw our angle. Where is negative 180? Once again, we just happen to get all the negatives. We're going in a negative direction, so that means downward this way. Okay, we're going this direction. Positive would be counterclockwise. So negative 180, let's see, here's negative 90. Here's negative 180. So that means my angle, if I were to draw it, is straight out here. That's the angle I want. Okay, if it lands on an XY axis, it is a special case. All right, you're just going to have to remember that if it lands on an XY axis, it is a special case. And for this special case, I'm going to remember in 10.4 that on the unit circle, the sine of negative 180 is equal to just the y value there. All right, special case for when it lands on an x or y axis. Why is that? Because I can't make a triangle here, you guys. there's no triangle. In order to pick a point on here and draw it perpendicular to the x-axis, there's no triangle. It's already on the x-axis. So if you'll just remember that it's equal to the y value, we'll pick a point, any point on here. If I were to mark this using tick marks, okay, what would be this point right here? Well, that is the point, what? Negative 3, 0. What is the y value here? The y value is 0. What if I had picked this dot right here? Well, that point is negative 2, 0. What is the y value? It doesn't matter what point I pick, the y value is the same. So, for my answer, if I want to know the sine of negative 180 degrees, the answer is just 0. So special case, all right, special case when it lands on the x or y axis. We're just going to refer back to our unit circle. All right, let's see your next section. Here we go. This next section wants us to, well, there we go. We're actually using the unit circle. So for these problems, you need to have a copy of this. Whether you go get your 10.4 homework, you get your notes, I don't care, but you need a copy of this unit circle. All right, so hit pause, go find you a copy. Right here, problem number 30. So we're looking right here at problem number 30. And it says, find me the tangent of 180 degrees. Well, remember, on the unit circle, tangent is the y value divided by the x value. Okay, so remember, tangent 180, let's go to our unit circle. Let's go find 180 degrees. Here it is right here. Here's my 180. So look at these two values. We have x and we have y. So negative 1, 0 are the numbers I'm going to use. So let's go back to our problem. The y value was 0. The x value was negative 1. Now, is it okay to have 0 on the numerator? Yes. And the answer is just 0. All right, I'm going to skip over to number 32. Tangent of 225. So back to our unit circle. I'm going to get you a different color so you can see where I'm going now. All right, we need 225. Where is it? I'm in red now. Oh, man, it's skinny. All right, 225, I'm down here. Do you see that? All right, 225, which means I'm looking at these values right here. Do you see those? All right, that's my x and that's my y. So let's go back. Tangent, remember tangent is y over x. Okay, what was the x or y value at 225? It was negative square root 2 over 2. Divided by what was the x value? Yep, negative square root 2 over 2. What happens if I take a negative square root 2 over 2 and divide it by a negative square root 2 over 2? If it's the same value, anything divided by itself is 1, and negative divided by negative is a positive. So my final answer is positive 1. All right, last problem, you guys. Cosine of 360. Back to my unit circle. What color should we do this time? We're going to go green. Let's get us a green. All right, where is 360 degrees? You found it right. It is right along here. Here's my 360. This is the coordinate I'm looking at. That is my x and my y value, 1, 0. So go back to here. And if I want to find the cosine of 360, cosine is just equal to my x value. So what was the x value right there? It was 1. And that is my answer. My answer to cosine 360 is just 1. All right, you guys, you're doing awesome. Keep up the good work. And now you have to go back and complete all of the odd numbers. You got this, and you'll be prepared for your tests.